Good morning and welcome back to FCF. I think this is number 6, and this is going to be the first one that I'm actually doing off stream. So, got back from a long day from Pokemon Go Fest in London, and I was just too tired to stream. I wanted to do it, and I was promising one for like a couple of weeks now, but with DT2 release and all that, I didn't get around to it. So instead I'm doing it in the morning, and it's just going to be a video exclusively on YouTube, and I'll get on with my normal streaming stuff later in the day. So I'm a bit loopy and a bit tired, and if you hear me just say some delusional take, then that's probably why. But let's get into it. For those who haven't watched before, this whole idea of FCF First Cape Friday is that on Fridays, this is actually Saturday, but I'm doing it as if it was a Friday. The whole idea is that I will be going into Inferno with a minimum budget setup. You could always downgrade a little bit more, but this is pretty close to as low as it goes as far as recommended gear these days. And running in and doing an Inferno, explaining with some very good detail all the practical tips and tricks you need to get through the run and make it as easy as possible for people. So I'm going to get through this first wave and maybe chat a little bit here and there, and because it's not on stream, I don't have to really be 24/7 on things. Probably leave one nibbler alive as I do this. And so we're going to put this crystal shield to the side for a little bit. Just dropping restores on North Pillar. Some quick stuff about the gear. We'll let this guy chomp for a little second. Quick thing about the DT2 gear. Yes, Virtus top is going to be a bit cheaper than Ancestral top, and it's going to replace Ancestral for the time being for pretty much anyone doing Inferno. It is not a big difference. And this is the case for a lot of gear when you're gearing for Inferno. Things like Kodai, things like Zaryte vambraces instead of like Ancient Staff or Barrows gloves, Devout Boots instead of Dehyde Boots, Virtus top instead of Mystic top or Ahrims top. It's barely a difference at all. So don't feel too bad about starting Inferno if you don't have these things. The main thing is that you have full crystal with a Bofa, and Devout Boots are fantastic. Again, Dehyde Boots are perfectly fine. Ring of the Gods is incredible, but if you can just if you don't have it and you have like a Ring of Suffering, then you're fine. It's not going to make or break the run. And those are really the only changes that DT2 makes. It's just replace the Ancestral top with Virtus, so it's a bit cheaper to get a good setup nowadays. People ask about the new staffs for magic, and basically I just think that they don't really do much. If you have access to the blood one, it can be good, but the most important thing is that you don't use it every single wave. Because if you heal up to 109, that's the effect of it, you're going to be wasting time healing on these waves that don't require you to. And because healing is quite slow, you want to be doing range damage. So as you get through the early waves, staying about 85, 90 HP is fine, and you want to heal up to that, but not more. And then as you hit 50, you want to start staying 99 at all times, because 50 is where it begins to get more dangerous. And you can even be 109 with post 50, but it will sap your restores, so bear in mind there's a bit of a trade-off there, and it's kind of, if you know there's a hard wave coming, maybe it's time to heal to 109. But optionally, for players who don't have the staff, you can just click a brew. Click a brew, click a restore, and suddenly you're 115, even better than 109. So these things don't matter too much. Okay, that's the gear stuff. If this is your first time watching, I'm going to talk about some questions that I don't usually get to talk about as well while doing this, especially the early waves. Firstly, plugins. I have low detail on, which makes the room very nice and tile-based, which is quite nice for seeing very distinct areas. I have only a couple of ground markers, and the only one I recommend, and let me join a party real quick, this is so I can ping ground tiles, is this one. This particular tile here is very useful. This will be your start tile for 50+. And we're going to use this tile to duck around the pillar and duck into this corner in order to safe spot stuff. Otherwise, our starting tiles are any of these 6 tiles, as these will safe spot almost every melee in the early waves and also in the late waves. And that's all there really is to it. You just start around here, or you start on that tile, post 50. South pillar, we really do not use South pillar. We only use North pillar, exclusively. Learning to use North pillar is going to make your life a lot easier and a lot more simplistic, and you'll learn all the tips and tricks fairly rapidly, compared to just legging it south, taking damage as you go, burning supplies, and then not understanding how to use South pillar. Which, incidentally, is quite funny, because it's obviously the same as North pillar, but it doesn't quite work. It doesn't quite play out that way. The NPCs might stack a bit differently, and it's going to add a bit of complexity that's not necessary. For a lot of NPCs when they spawn south, we're just going to run away from them. And especially if these guys are frozen, there's no time pressure. And we want blobs and a lot of NPCs to really touch the pillar and be stuck here. I can always go for these guys rapidly. And how we deal with blobs is as follows. When the blob attacks us, after it hits us, if we're close range, wait a second, and then switch your prayer. It hits us, wait a second, and switch your prayer. Hits us, wait a second, switch your prayer. This is not a precise thing. Just like this. Now, if we are quite far away from the blob, let's say over here, this hits us, wait and go. Slightly earlier, very slightly earlier. And if we are really, really far away, let's say we're in this corner over here, so from this distance, this is like max distance. As it hits me, now, I have to switch immediately. And so this removes the timing aspect, and you just look at the projectile, it's like, do I hit switch, do I switch, do I switch? Now. And that's it. That's all you gotta do with blobs. And if we're close up again, if we're over here, now we've come back a bit closer, it hits us, we wait a second, now we switch. It hits us, wait a second, now we switch. And after he attacks is when you can move back in. So these fundamentals are very important if you're going for first cave, and you do have to learn a few of these things. Inferno is one of them. If Inferno is one of those few bits of content, you have to really learn a lot of things about how it works and ways to do things well. You can't just brute force it. You cannot just take in 20 brews and brute force this. You have to actually learn some stuff. And these things aren't hard to learn. So if you take the time, it'll make your experience very smooth. You'll become a really good player, and it should be quite fun. With regards to this blob, when we're standing and attacking him, this is the first like primary position of blobs. When we're attacking him, we want to be from this tile further back. Anywhere here. We cannot be where the super restores are. This will cause him to not die correctly. And if we kill him from this tile or further back, anywhere here, we're going to pray range when he dies. And if we stay still, this formation will form and only the ranger can hit me. I'll be using this throughout the early waves, and the way we do this is to switch to our mage gear and ice barrage, or blood barrage if we're not 99. And if you want to get more damage out, or, well, not more damage, but if you want to heal more, you can do a phantom. And a phantom is simply from this far back tile, all the way back with line of sight. You can put augury on, take off negatives. You cast blood barrage once and blood barrage twice instantly, like this. Cast and cast. And you'll see, I don't get the XP drop for killing all of them, but I will get the heal. And so this gives you maybe 35 to 40 HP every time you do this. And this is your primary method of healing. So that if you're 60 HP on the end of a wave, don't feel too bad about doing that. You get all your HP back. Okay, let's get stuck into the waves. So first of all, we're letting stuff drag in. These are early waves, and the more confident you get with them, the less you have to worry about running back to pillar, and the more you can maybe run up to them and attack them. And Blob attacks us, so we can move behind the pillar. Blob moves in, now he's in the good position, and let's go. This tile here is the bat safe spot, so it's one tile away from our like starting tile. And it just means that I can attack it without it attacking us. Here, I'm full HP, let's switch to our gear. One good barrage, and this XP drop means they're all dead. 200 is a nice one, and you can learn some of these XP drops as well. So, having our camera really quite high up. Notice the blob is here, so we switch instantly. Let's go to our proper tank gear and our proper DPS gear. And I'm waiting for this to hit me, and then switching a second after. Let's attack this nibbler since it's quite close and we have a low pipe. And I'm going to duck around the pillar, so let's see. I switch now. When this hits me, wait a second, switch, and now I can go around the pillar praying range. You don't have to do things like this, but they will make your life easier if you make it fluid. Let's go back out. And now the blob is in that primary position, our lovely, like, perfect position to attack him with. And when he dies, we just pray range. Now this bat sometimes moves towards us a little bit, but he is stuck on the melee, so it's okay. But we don't, at this stage, we don't have to be too worried about bats or anything. This guy is not frozen, so we have to pray mage. But now the bat's unfrozen, so maybe a better place to kill it is like over here. This might just be a little bit, make a bit more sense in terms of where to stand. And whatever's left at the end, pray against it, should be fine. Whenever I hit like 60 prayer, I'm just sipping a restore. With Devout Boots and with two blobs here, I'm starting here. I don't need to be afraid. I let the attacks hit me and then I switch. Yeah, attacks hit me and I switch. There's nothing like magical about this. You just attack hits you, switch. Now in this case he was dragging, so it's a bit weird. Attack hits me, switch. I want this guy to come closer and this guy's available. Let's go around the pillar and switch for him. And now this guy's started, so let's switch for him. Great. Now when you're killing blobs in different positions like this, I can't just go around to set this guy up properly. So what I'm going to do is after he dies, I'm going to come up and stand next to him. And this keeps the melee in a nice little triangle with the other guys. Good. So there are some different positions you have to learn, and we're going to keep moving our camera as we do this. This blob here, on the west side, if you kill him from the north over here, not good. If you kill him from this tile, anywhere back like this is good. So I'll show you. Blob attacks us. You switch after a second. Blob attacks us. Switch after a second. And we still have to get the prayer in. And now we pray range. And here, formation is lovely. Melee can't get to us. Mage is stuck. And notice that the major... Oh, okay. The XP drop was bad here, but... In some cases, with that XP drop, the mage is going to be last alive. And if in doubt, just pray melee, or pray mage, or pray range. And so these early waves are just really nothing to do with them. It's just, as long as you know how to flick that blob, you're completely scot-free. Now, because there's a lot of nibblers here, I might send another barrage, and then into my blowpipe. We do not want to be barraging too much here. We want to be barraging maybe once or twice per wave for the nibblers, and then switching to pipe, and it's just much better. Now we have a melee. I'm going to try and clean up these guys. We'll pray melee as well. Now, if this melee gets to me, I'm praying melee, so it doesn't matter much. And this is one of those things about the early waves. Don't be too afraid about NPCs. Simply praying against like this is complete mitigation of damage. Don't have to worry about anything. You can drag him around and play with him. And if you get to this wave, you can mess around with him. You can figure out how he works. Same for if there's blobs. You can drag the blobs around a bit. You can try and alternate prayer flick. And this prayer flick, you can go to wave 4 and practice it. And it seems like, you know, why are you learning this kind of thing? But it will come up in the run much later, and it will be really useful. So learning to be able to do that on command might seem tricky, but it's just a bit of practice. And again, if you go to wave 4, literally just wave 4 with single blob, you can practice that for quite a while, and get used to it. So for these waves, notice like anywhere on the side of the pillar, the melee is stuck over there, so I'm not too worried about him. And again, after the bat dies, because it's a simple NPC, all we have to do is pray melee. And I can either barrage this or go and pipe it, doesn't really matter. And you'll learn things such as, like, right now, he's safe spotted. So this side of the pillar looks very good for us. And if I want to mess with him, I can come and pray melee. Taking a hit from him resets his dig, by the way, which is very important. And there are some cool things you can do, like this. It might look like he's going to get to you, but he's stuck on the pillar. And you can do this from all sides. You can run down the pillars like this, on these sides in particular. And we'll use this later on in the run as well. Don't be afraid to take a hit. Never, never, never. Getting more control of NPCs is very important. Let's go for a nice barrage, not bad. And we're going to ignore this nibbler and go for the bat. If you want to speed it up, put on your quick prayers with rigor. And one tick flick if you can do. You don't have to, but it helps a lot. If you burn rigor, it's not the end of the world, but of course it's still burning rigor. So if you can use it and you can get free damage, go for it. And if you can't, maybe consider practicing a bit. Or lazy flicking. You can lazy flick like this. If this is something new to you, again, you can practice it. If not, then go for it. It's really useful. Saves your prayer completely. No prayer drain, and all the benefits. So whatever flicking pattern you choose to use, just maybe pick one and go for it when, you know, as long as nothing too crazy is going on. Now we have a blob and a melee. This is like the first interesting wave. Let's go back on the pillar. One barrage, and we're going to flick the blob. Ignore the nibblers. What I need to do is figure out how to deal with these two guys. Well, I know the melee is safe spotted because if I come up here, that's how he was last time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep my eyes on the blob and flick the blob and just attack the melee. So attack hits me, wait a second, switch. Attack hits me, wait a second, switch. Attack hits me, and the melee's dead. That's it. Now I can come up to these guys, right click them and kill them. And I'm going to go all the way back on pillar and make sure that I'm still flicking this blob exactly the same way as before and drag him in. So that process is the first example of two NPCs, which have slightly different means of solving. We're using safe spots on the melee, and we're dealing with the blob in exactly the same way as before. And we just choose the DPS option because the DPS option is most consistent. Sit more restore, and let's go after the blob. And now, finally, after all that's said and done, this blob is in a really nice, easy position to finish up with, which is very common. Notice my HP is like still 107, still completely fine. And as long as you're treating these early waves with a tiny bit of caution and a sort of good approach, you should not take damage really up till 50, to be totally honest. Not from many sources, anyway. One barrage, we're going to flick this blob. Maybe have the camera a bit like wider like this so you can see everything. And let's switch to our blowpipe. Let's go to the bat safe spot because this bat's going to get to us otherwise. And we're still flicking the blob. Oh, I missed this flick. Okay, this hits us. It's max range, so we flick instantly. And if you want to drag the blob in, you can do it like this. Now, the way the melee works is approximately every 45 ticks or so from the start of the wave it's going to dig. It's a little bit random, and there is a bit of randomness to it, but you can sort of predict it. And the idea is that when he digs, pray melee, and don't move. He needs to wiggle out from under you, because if he's underneath you and you click him, you're going to get pulled out. And that could go into the blob, or into the major, or into the ranger in the future. And you really don't want to do that. Now, in dealing with melees, they are slow. So don't forget, if you can flick rigor, or even if you can camp rigor, that's great, and it helps a lot. The one NPC that's going to cause you problems in this run is the melee. Not many other things will really cause you that much issue. And if you want to practice again, you can even practice on the blob. You can set up a bit of a one-tick alternate. And so you can see this will catch all the blob flicks. Even if you're doing this on just any random blob for a bit of practice, it will pay off tremendously. And I can't stress how important it is to really have an open mind about practicing this as a piece of content. And practicing it will get you much further than trying to brute force it, or anything else along those lines. Cool. So our progress is pretty good. And that's a nice barrage. Sometimes you want to click the ground. Because if these guys are going south, you're going to get pulled along with them. Notice that while we're flicking this blob, this melee is stuck and I can come out 3 tiles. And I'm talking about these 6 tiles being quite good starting tiles because of this. And I can use rigor to speed it up in case he decides to jump on me. Ooh, I got to flick the blob too, got distracted. Onto the bat save spot. I can both hear the blob and I can see when the projectile hits me, and I just switch when it hits me. So I can have all my focus on these bats and just switch on a reaction-based thing. So there's the attack, switch. A lot of this will take a lot of the mental off your run, because you no longer have to really worry about it. I think I took that hit. So we're going to drag him in. I'm 88 HP, and I'm going to take a couple more hits to demonstrate how this works. I'm going to drag him in as I do this. Maybe one more hit is enough. Good, so I'm 44 HP. And now this will happen to you on a couple of runs. And how do you get your HP back without brewing and barraging? Okay, let's go attack. We're going to set him up. I'm going to show you the power of the Phantom Barrage. This is like an essential first caper thing these days. So, we stay on this line, and we come pretty far back. Not all the way back, but pretty far back. We can take off our negatives. Augury on. We can do 1 Blood Barrage, and then immediately another. There's 1. There's 2. I can do a 3rd over here. And I can do a 4th, possibly? No. So I got from 44 to 72. And I can also start the next wave with Blood Barrage. Let's flick this blob. And let's ignore these guys. I'm clicking the ground so I don't get dragged around too much. And what I'm going to do... You can also switch with Bofa and attack the melee with Bofa, because it's really good range. But make sure you switch back. And in close range, we can pipe him. It doesn't really matter what you use, Bofa or Blowpipe, to do this. As long as you use one of them and you just attack. Now, our South Pillar's taking damage, and I don't care if it falls, but for the purposes of trying to do like a nice clean run and show you guys a bit more about how we can use things, a bit more about what we can do with it, I will try and save it. If you see me doing certain things this run that look a bit like crazy, it might just be because I want to keep something alive or demonstrate something, and ultimately it doesn't help if I die in the run, so if you notice a crazy wave where I'm doing some ridiculous shit, that's probably why. It's not because it's really the right thing to do, it's simply because I need to save the run to show you guys more of the run. That's kind of the point after all. If you ever notice me like stepping up my gameplay and stuff like that, that's why. But so the solution there was just stand still and kill the melee. We got double melee wave, so we can pray melee. And I can focus these nibblers immediately. Switch to my proper gear to go after them. And now I can even have some fun. I can come up and take both of them at the same time. You don't have to worry about this. And notice that because we're blood barraging on these simple ways, we're getting back to full HP without having to waste our time on the big NPCs. Because the mini blobs and the nibblers are really good targets. There's 3 of them with fairly low magic defense. The nibblers are an amazing source of HP, although a bit awkward to get to sometimes. So on these waves where you have to pray one style, like it's a single ranger or maybe a single blob, double melee, single melee, these are great waves to blood barrage on, if you're ever low. Now, a lot of people talk about settings for Inferno. And you noticed I talked about low detail when I first started on this run. And low detail is very good for clearing up the Inferno and making it look a bit nicer. I will also very much go for, very much always say to use Entity Hider. Hiding dead NPCs in particular. Hiding dead NPCs in particular is a very good one. Now, for a single ranger, let's not be afraid. We can just go up and attack it. All you have to do is pray range. There's really nothing more to it. So, having a bit of confidence, just starting with range for the first few waves of the ranger, going up and attacking it. If you want to save prayer or get some damage out, you can flick like this. But it's not very necessary if you have this much prayer bonus. And bear in mind, I'm rocking like... I can't see it right now, but I'm rocking a lot of prayer bonus. Notice I had 0 mage gear on, and I barraged that and I killed them all. One of those things where you do not need mage gear and mage levels really to get those nibblers frozen. The damage is obviously very good with all this stuff on, but it's really not a big deal. Let's sip more restore. I'm still not flicking, and I have so much prayer in my inventory that as long as I try to consistently do the waves, and I don't hide behind pillars and waste my time, I will have 3 to 4 restores left over at the end of the run, even without any flicking. And it goes to show you again the power of the prayer bonus, and the fact that a lot of the time you could get away with bringing not just 6 brews, but maybe 8, 9, 10, 11 brews, or more DPS potions, which are also hugely beneficial. We're still in the early ranger waves, and notice that it's all range. It's all range. There's bats. I can even go and kill the nibbler here. If I want to kill the bat, maybe rigor on for a minute. This spot here is nice. I can attack this bat from this side. And I could go and attack him, but I think I'll bring him back a little bit. Give myself a second to rest, which is completely fine. Yeah. More with regards to plugins, one of the biggest things that prevents people from getting Inferno Cape, or at least slows them down a lot, this is a surprising one. It's actually Windows screen size. It's the size of your client. And a lot of players play on full screen. And I'm telling you now, if you're a full screen player, or you play on anything close to full screen, it's not going to prevent you from getting a cape. But it is going to make it miles harder. And the big reason for this is because from the middle of your screen, here, to your inventory, this distance increases as you increase the size of your client. And from like the middle of my screen around here to the inventory, if it's full screen, it might be double what I'm playing with. I play on a relatively small screen. For reference, I'm playing on something like 1065 times... I can even look it up. My rune light in particular is 1040 times 635. So it's relatively small. It's not crazy, but it's relatively small. For this blob, we haven't actually dealt with him yet. What we do is we start here and we move in. Same as the other ones where you want to end next to him. Click him in exactly the same way. So we move in here, pray mage. With full HP, so we ice barrage. Good XP drop, back into our proper gear. And this is our first instance of having this melee like this. What this is if you try and click it, you'll be dragged out here. And everything on the south side will kill you. So you want to take a step back in order to attack him. Otherwise, if I do this, I'll get dragged like this, right? It's not good. But full screen is generally very bad for PVMing in general. And if you're doing your first sort of... If Inferno for you is your like first time big piece of PVM, consider making your screen smaller. You don't have to do it overnight. You can do it over the course of a couple of days. But making it smaller means reducing this window where your peripheral can really pick up things in your inventory. It reduces your ability to precisely maneuver your mouse. And when you're trying to flip prayers and watch NPCs, this can get really tricky. So full screen, it may not seem like a big thing, but for learners it is honestly the biggest thing. Another major help when trying to improve at games is a PC. Whether improving an old setup or looking to make the move from a laptop, my brand new partnership with Apex Gaming PCs brings you 3 customizable PCs at 3 different price ranges. These PCs are crafted with my design input, and make use of components from top brands with excellent wiring and construction. You can even finance a PC for monthly payments if you're working towards one. Use code ATI at checkout for 10% off any purchases from my range of PCs. Doing so will also directly support me. More links will be in the description down below. Right, so we can pick up some more restores as we're getting through this. Let's use a dose, staying really, really topped up, and go after this blob. This blob is in the same position, which is great. We just did it. We're going to do it again. And it might seem a bit excessive to top up restore as much as I do, but the idea is if you have one of those waves that's kind of intensive, and it's really tricky to deal with, if you keep topping up your restore, you're not going to have a problem with that wave trying to lean into your inventory to get another dose off, because you already have it. So by standing here, all these waves are really nice and easy. As long as I don't move and panic, like if I stay still, most of the waves are solved. For example, this blob is stuck, and it's just range NPCs, so I just pray range. I don't really have anything I can even do right now to make this run easier. You know, I can Bofa this, by the way. If you're not sure you're going to get dragged around, you can Bofa it. And in general, if you have to, you can Bofa just about anything, and it's not terrible. It will help your flicking pattern because it's Fortic, and the damage isn't particularly bad at all. So whenever I use these weapons, I use them fairly interchangeably, and don't be afraid to put on the Bofa to attack a melee from afar or a nibbler from afar. It's one of the big benefits of having Bofa in general. Sometimes when NPCs respawn from the major, I'll Bofa them because they're quite far back from the major, just to get rid of them, and that's perfectly reasonable as well. Whenever you want to, you can start putting on the shield, but I won't use this until 50, both to prove that it doesn't really matter too much, and also because it's an extra switch that kind of gets in the way a bit. We've used, I think, 1 resource so far, and we are on wave 24. I'm going to wait for these for a second to clump up, and then I'm just going to duck around the pillar. And I'm ducking around the pillar because there's a lot of stuff over there, but there's only 1 blob here. And we already know how to deal with this blob because we've done it a few times now. This blob's going to come down and around, that's okay. When I step in, I release him, so let's pray against him. Taking my time to set up my barrage, and I'm still praying against the big guy. And I'm still praying against the big guy. Let's kill this guy. And now I can take a second to deal with this guy instead. Or I can even kill the ranger. I've got a nibbler on the pillar, but it's not the biggest deal. And I did say that you shouldn't kill blobs from this side, but we have a ranger to heal from if we want to. So for this guy, I'm 75 HP. Let's consider using a blob barrage here. Oh, even less now. Let's move in. Augury on, get a blood barrage off and see what it is. Not bad. Switch to our proper gear and pray accordingly. And that's completely fine for dealing with one of these guys in the open. Very range for the ranger. Maybe a 2-way switch into a blood barrage. And I'm far enough away I can double cast like this. And get a bit more HP off it. And whenever we're in a position that is fairly low HP like this, like 70 odd, I'd recommend healing up a bit. And again, if you have Blood Scepter, don't go to 109. Just go to like 85, 90. 90 is completely fine. If you're not comfortable, feel free to go higher, but it won't really help you all that much. There's 86, let's do 1 more. That is 91, and I'm happy with 91. So getting to 99 is a bit of a waste of time, a bit of a waste of resources, and again, we want to go fairly fast, because Inferno is long, and long generally equals boring, so making it as short as possible while interesting as possible is good. Now, this melee is going to get to me, so let's take a step around the corner and pray melee. Whenever a melee spawns here or here, they will get to you. Those are the only two spots, if you're standing here. If you're standing over here on the start, then these 2 guys can get to you, potentially. But by coming up here, we trap this guy. It'll make a bit more sense later. But for now, let's just focus the DPS solution. I can put Rigor on to speed things up. Range pray on, do a couple of switches, and go for the barrage to try and save this pillar. Maybe follow it up with a nice barrage, anything to just finish it off. Great. And we're 99 from doing that, so not getting to 99 before kind of paid off a bit, because I could still barrage. South pillar is now getting low. And one of the big problems with, like, first caper runs is that you care about your pillars. And I'm here to tell you that your pillars don't matter, except for your north pillar. Notice how healthy my north pillar is. And this is because north pillar is very, very easy to protect. Whereas south pillar is not so easy to protect, and if you go for it, you're going to get dragged out. And we call this nibbler chasing. This melee spawned here, we have to run around the pillar. Nibbler chase, let's put on rigor as well, to speed things up. Notice I'm holding my low hype specs in case of a scary scenario or a scary wave. They're very useful, and you can always burn them for a bit of damage like this, but they're not that great. So they're more of a panic scenario thing. I'm going to keep rigor on while I kill the bat, and then I'm going to go after these guys. 3-way switch. Let's try and get these guys off the pillar. I can keep casting like this, which is phantoming them. This just kind of guarantees I hit all 3. And now we're back to the ranger. Take rigor off now. Or flick it again like this. But south pillar is very awkward to protect. It's very awkward to get to. Same with west pillar. And south pillar has some detrimental features. If you start here, which is the best tile for wave 50 onwards, and a major spawns up here, you cannot stand still on this tile, as the major will drag round the pillar and see you. But if south pillar is dead, that cannot happen. And it sounds a bit strange, but what I'm saying is, by the time you get to wave 50, you should actively seek to have your south pillar die. Which seems very counterintuitive in a game mode where your pillars are your life force, but that's just the case for making your life a bit easier as a first caper. West pillar is okay to keep alive, but south pillar actually, you want it dead by wave 50. We're currently on wave 27. A lot of people always say, like, why don't you have your wave chat box open? And there's a few reasons why I don't really want it open. Most notably, players sort of get hyper-focused on the wave, and it's going to add nerves to your run. It's not really going to help you in terms of knowing what's on the wave, because when it spawns, it's still random. You still have to figure it out as you go. Some of you have said that it's quite nice to have it because you know where I am in the run. To which I simply say, maybe just look at the wave when it spawns, because I have my camera like this. Just look at what spawns, and you can tell what's the wave based on that. If you're following along with the wiki or the plugin. So it shouldn't be too difficult to figure it out. Apologies if it is, but I don't like playing like that, I'm afraid. Okay, one barrage, let's duck around the pillar. Same process as before. This melee is going to get to us, so we have to be aware of it. And these two are not things we want to deal with. I'm going to take a step in, and what this does is it moves the ranger and then the blob. If you do this early enough, you can safe spot stuff behind the pillar really nicely. And now this blob is in a good position for us. If you don't take that step and you stand here, the blob is going to end up corner trapped on this corner here, which is perfectly fine as well. Notice that this is in fact a nice little stack. And I can hit the ranger here by hitting the melee, which is also a nice little benefit. When I do this, I have to be aware that when I step out, I'm going to be in the ranger line of sight. Oh, and he can melee you. You do that. Try and get some good heals off this. Not too bad, and our pillar's taken a bit of damage. Again, not the end of the world. If right now my south pillar and west pillar died, I would be okay. That's how strong it is with north pillar. That's how easy it is to protect north pillar. At some point, I'll be using this tile here. And this tile here is in line with the base of the pillar, and it allows you to attack the nibblers on this tile here. And that's how we defend north pillar, while being safe from the south side. Let's stand, let's click the ground to make sure we stay still, and then pray melee for the melee. The bat itself isn't a big problem, and we can always camp rigger for the defense, and to get it killed ASAP. Okay, now I have nibblers up there. I can, both of them, or I can send a barrage. I want to make sure I do this quickly, otherwise when they start moving, I'm going to get dragged out into the ranger. And so again, it's important to make a bit of a snappier decision for that, or just let them go to your pillar. If you're in the, if you want to protect your pillars, maybe that's the best way to do it quickly. Make a snap decision. In general, a lot of Inferno is just about making decisions in a decently rapid way. In these waves, I don't recommend burning blowpipe specs. For the purposes of my run, I can do it, just to get some topped up HP and keep it fluid. But never burn 2 unless you're about to die. 2 is like that sort of level where 1 might just be enough, but 2 is likely to help you a pretty big amount when dealing with like a melee that you have to face tank. So keeping 1 in reserve at least is important. This is one of those reasons why, in addition to the idea of having infinite prayer, and I'm still not really flicking right, but in addition to having this like practically infinite prayer setup, I'm gonna blood barrage this wave by the way. Just stand still and notice what happens. The melee didn't spawn over on these 2 areas, and now he's stuck. I'm gonna put on rigger to DPS stuff, and I can go after this nibbler whenever I like. I'm also gonna go after this melee, and I've got rigger on to do so because if he digs, I have to deal with the meleeer and the ranger, and that's not so nice. So I've got rigger on. And now he's dead. And before he's a problem, he's dead. That's the idea. As long as you recognize this and don't panic on the wave start, up until now, every single wave, all I've done is either stand here or go from here to here. And ducked round the pillar so that stuff up here doesn't see me. That's all I've done. There's really nothing to these early waves other than that, and flicking blobs correctly. And of course, once I'm staying in this line of sight from the pillar. If I take a step like further south here, you can see me. But now that I'm here, I come around the pillar, and I'm in a really nice familiar position again. Decent barrage, great, makes my life easy. I can pick up this last restore and maybe pop it over here as well. Okay, duck around the pillar, just instantly. Nothing more to be, you don't even have to flick stuff like this. If it hits you, no biggie. And notice that this blob is going to slide round down the NPCs, and this is okay. If I take a step in, it's going to come into the pillar. But this is a nice safe spot. And there's some benefits to this, because as with any NPC except for a melee, if I take a step out, it can now see me and I can attack it. However, I can also take a step in, and I'm safe spotting it again. And the benefit of doing this and knowing about this is that the melee digs at some point. If I just pray melee, now I've got 1 NPC to deal with, and not a mini blob set, a mini blob fest, or a mini blob or a blob on its own. So sometimes it pays to be a bit more patient and come up with a solution. And you'll notice this as we go further into the run. I'm going to be doing things where I'm looking to set up melee safe spots ahead of time. Because dealing with these NPCs is usually just like go around a pillar, maybe isolate one, maybe DPS one, but a melee doesn't always get DPS'd in time, or you can't always reach it in time. And when it comes to kill you, you're still screwed. Let's come around the pillar for a second. Doing some silly stuff. This is fine. And notice again, I have to be here. Like, okay, a bit late there. I couldn't really show it. Maybe I'll grab one of these mini lobs and show it. Now, this is our first stack. And this is one of those waves where you don't have to want to alternate, but it will help you greatly if you learn to do this. And if you learn to do it consistently and learn to do it, well, it will help a lot. So, again, you can practice this in wave 4, and there are 2 ways to set this up. You can, I'm going to switch to Bofa for this, just so I can hit the ranger easily. The first example is that I pray range for an entire cycle, and then I start alternating on the next cycle because I can catch it easily, and I'll show you what that looks like. So we start with range, click this guy, and we just pray range, and then get ready. Now we go. That's what the first cycle looks like, and it means you take a blob hit each time. But it's easy to set up and it's easy to catch if you're learning. Alternatively, you can go out and you can instant start it like this. We're going to keep alternating until the blob attacks us, and now we can move back. So you have 2 options there. One is not quite as good as the other, but it still works well. And it's to get you introduced to the idea of one-tick alternating. One-tick alternating 100% of the time catches blob flicks. So that if it's just like, let's say, a major and 20 blobs in the room, if I alternate correctly on pace with the major, nothing can see me. Nothing will hit me. That's the power of it. That's why it's so good. Go after this guy. I'm going to leave a meleeer alive so I can show you guys something. Trigger on for a moment. Kill off these 2. Now, this is why you want to really be careful safe spotting them, because look, I've taken 40 damage from 2 of them. So from around the side of the pillar here, much like how when I'm safe spotting here, if I attack him directly, I will be dragged out like this into the line of sight of everything. You want to be a little bit careful doing this. Okay, next wave is pretty simple. It's just a ranger and 2 melees. Let's Blob Barrage to start. And let's click the ground and stand still. These guys all died. Great. And there are some tricks here we can use, but for now I'm just going to kill this melee. This is one of those tricks you can use when you're standing here and move out and in. When I'm standing here, I can move out and in. Like this, and I can free up this guy. Now I've got to take a step further in, because he can still see me otherwise. But this gives you easy access to a melee. When he digs, a good answer to the digging is to move from this side to this side to this side, like this. Moving between these 3 is very good to deal with digs, so like I can move up here. And if he digs on me here, I can move back. And if he digs on me there, I can move over here. Or more so like down here really, but I'll show you guys that later. So switching between these 3 sides. You do not want to go over this side when dealing with melees. This side is going to kill you most of the time. But these 3 sides, usually good. These 2 moving back and forth work very well. These are your best 2. Again, these are things you learn. If you go to the first melee in the Inferno and sit down and practice with it, it will help a lot. It will give you some understanding of where you can and can't go. And now we have double ranger. So I know I said to start on the pillar a lot of the time, but usually it doesn't matter too much. Let's wait a second for them to clump up, and then switch to our proper DPS gear and clean up. Good. So our pillar, we're on major, more or less, and it's taken like a sliver of damage. This is really nothing. And we can practice our blowpipe walking on the rangers, which is a skill we're going to need for doing Zuck healers. Same as if you've ever been to Zolora or something like that. You just attack, move, and because blowpipe is 2-tick, we're not losing any DPS, we're not losing any hits. And we're still able to get our movement off. This is the thing you have to do with the shield when you get the healers. So if you want to take some time and practice on rangers, that's a great opportunity. If you can do this kind of thing, or you've been to places like Vorkath, Zolora, and you've had lots of practice, maybe summon Rays, then don't worry, as long as you can do it on command, you're fine. Let's Blob Barrage these guys. You can also Ice Barrage, but I'm gonna Blob Barrage to get some HP back. And then one more Barrage and clean up with our range gear. Great. Now it's a single major, so we can even start praying mage and be a bit braver at the beginning. We're gonna bow for these guys. I'd recommend flicking rigor lazy like this. You can also, at this point in time, swap your quick prayers, so they are mage and rigor. Personally, I don't like to do this, but it is a good thing if you can do it. It allows you to one-tick flick all the mages. But these guys are fairly simple. Remember that if you kill something else in the room, the big major is going to respawn them at a rate of 1 in 10 attacks. So when it attacks, it has a chance to respawn something. And you want to try and prevent this from occurring as often as possible. Because if it happens, you're wasting your own time killing the NPC twice. So for example, if I kill the bat here, and I'll do it to demonstrate, there's a 1 in 10 chance that this major revives him on every attack. So we're rolling 1 in 10 chance. Oh, and of course, because it's demonstrating lovely, it instantly does it for me. When an NPC respawns, it has half HP, so this kills it, even though it's only half the damage required usually. And now it's dead, it cannot respawn again. So sometimes when you're dealing with things like melees, you do want to kill them, and when they respawn, you just kill them again instantly. But it is situation dependent, and for the most part, you don't want to kill anything except for the major. You want to kill the major first. Not always, but it's a good rule of thumb. So, not flicking anything still, infinite prayer. Get our stuff back on and go for it. One barrage, let's stand still, click the ground, and pray range. This guy's clearly safe spotted. And I can deal with this bat here. If I go around the pillar and attack the major, this bat is still going to be on my ass. So I can go around the pillar, click, then pray, if you want to do it well. And now the bat that had to die is dead. And this one doesn't have to die right now, which saves me time instead of killing it. A lot of the time, you don't have to just clear everything. And again, this bat is not a worry. Just kill the major. Now I'm going to waste a couple of seconds killing that bat, which equals wasted prayer. But it's not as bad as if I had to do both of them. And now we get into an interesting wave next time. It's Major and Blob. Remember, when one-tick alternating, you lose 0 time. And the Blobs cannot hit you. Both of these guys, again, Bofa and Blowpipe, are fairly interchangeable throughout the run. Let's see what we get. Click the ground, make sure you just stand still, don't get pulled out. Another detriment to South Pillar being alive is that when you start here and they go south, you get pulled out. But it turns out we're fine. Now, I'm going to come in and demonstrate. So if I wait for the attack, wait a second, switch and come around, this is good. Okay, so I have a cycle. And see that with the Major and the Blob will never hit me. If you want to practice on waves like this, well, that much better. The more practice you get, the better this becomes, the easier it becomes. And you'll have to do this for things like pillar stacks. There's no cheat code, there's no easy way to do it, you just have to learn to do this on command. Again, making sure that you're playing on things like not full screen. Oh, not sure if that was me or lag. Took a hit. Making sure you're not playing on things like mega full screen, making sure your mouse sensitivity isn't ridiculous, helps a lot. I'll be Blob barraging for another wave here, just to be careful. And Major exit is 70, so I have to be specifically very careful. I'm going to come back to the Nibbler safe spot here. And barrage. And I don't get pulled out, and the Blob can't see me. This is very powerful. It's a good tool to help you save the pillar. I'm now going to move up to this tile here. And as you saw, the Major moved in. And now we can attack it. So the idea is, for later waves, we start here and move to this corner. This corner also corner traps stuff in this position. So it's very, very powerful. If you're ever below Major max hit, like I'm 65 right now, and you're not feeling comfortable, just brew. And if you ever think you're going to take a hit, just brew. And try and get away from the Major. Because you can tank Blob hits while you brew, but you can't really tank Major hits if you make a mistake or get run out of prayer. But if you're in control and you just want to maybe flick rigor like this, there's no danger. So don't worry too much. It is nerve-wracking though. For this Blob, I nearly attacked from this side, but let's set him up properly. Let's use rigor and burn a blowpipe spec to see if I get a bit more healing. I do. Bat safe spot. or even further back if I want to heal. And then 1 Blood Barrage, 2 Blood Barrage, and let's see what we get. That is 98. I can do 1 more because they all survived. That's 99. Go to the bat safe spot and kill this bat. Hopefully, as more NPCs are added to the run, you'll see how this run becomes smoother and smoother. We're chaining concepts and ideas that we're learning together to make it easier. Let's go around the pillar. This mage is up here. And I can put Rigor on and kill this bat. There's the attack from the blob, so we switch to it. I can also switch back to range after it's done. And then come back into mage. If I take a step out like this, there's a chance I can go for this nibbler. I can. Clicking the ground after is important. And I want to pray mage when I do that in case they get dragged out. I don't want to kill this blob before I kill the major, but there's a bat in the way. So what I'm going to do is wait for the blob flick, put Rigor on, put mage pray on, and come out into this and kill the bat. It doesn't matter if I take bat hit, it's only a bat. Now I can put my Bofa on and go after them. So bats are the one thing you don't have to worry about stepping out into line of fire of. Blobs, as long as you can alternate, are okay, but like a major and a melee, maybe not. A major and a ranger, maybe not. We have 2 Bastion potions, and I recommend 2, although 1 is sufficient. And when we start to get to wave 48 onwards, maybe 48 is a good wave for it. I can probably range for a second here. When he respawns, the oh, okay, I got him. When he respawns something, it's 2 whole attacks of time, which means that you can continue alternating and you'll still be on the same cycle. Oh, great. Hello, friend. Which means you can continue alternating and you'll still be on the same cycle. You don't have to worry about moving out of the way when he respawns, or like if you're going to go off tick, because you'll be fine. Okay, 1 barrage. Let's just go behind the pillar, and I'm going to go over here to safe spot him. See how if I was a bit later, he would have come around the pillar. Not the end of the world, but it's a bit scary. Let's pray range. Releasing the blob, praying range, so he checks me for mage. Coming around the pillar, into the major. And now I can go after this guy. And if I want to save south pillar, I can do this, although the blob is going to attack me. This is the kind of thing I don't recommend doing, because you will take some damage like that. But if you do it carefully and you're aware that you can heal off blobs, it's okay to take a calculated risk like that. It would not be okay if there were like 3 nibblers up there to go and sit in the middle of the room for 20 seconds attacking. But for 1 in a controlled scenario with high HP, it's probably okay. Again, there are very bad habits you can fall into if you're a first caper, and nibbler chasing is one of them. So if you've done a few runs and you're not nibbler chasing, maybe you can start adding in maybe like 1 chase per run or 2 chase per run, just to make sure your pillars have that edge. But too much, going to be very detrimental. Let's step in. Blood barrage the middle one, switch to our proper gear, and this guy will fall into the corner like this and get trapped. And again, we can just sit here, we can release him, attack him, we can even move back in, and this is completely fine. What I can't do from this position here is drag out like this, because now I'm in melee range, and we don't want to be in melee range because we get punched. Thank you, Blob. These guys are doing some great demonstrations today. And when he punches you, his cycle goes all wonky, and it's kind of awkward to deal with. He's now in the open, so I'm going to step up into him, and make sure the melee stays together. I'm going to blow by walk away from him, back to the start. Fantastic. Another dose of restore, and let's start with the blood barrage. Let's click the ground and pray melee. This meleeer is clearly going to get to me. Let's kill this nibbler now. And now I took 1 damage for that wave. That's okay. I want to not kill the melee, and I want to kill the major first. But I will say that in this scenario, it probably doesn't matter very much. I can come around the pillar, and this is like the same kind of safe spot going down the pillar. This kind of thing. I can even manipulate the melee and hold him a bit better. And obviously, if I go back in here, or here, these 2 tiles, I'll take a melee hit. If you want to keep the melee in place, it can be good. Because otherwise this happens, and now I'm kind of like in a bit of a weird spot. I've got to go around the pillar, got to pray against him. And now he's safe spotted, but it's wasting my time. So often or not, one thing you can do, I'm just going to bring the melee around to show you. One thing you can do with the melee, after the major attacks, just get ready. At major attacks, pray melee, come in, come out. And you can practice this. It's a nice little sequence. You don't do it all the time, just demonstrating. But if you do it every 10 seconds or so, you'll keep the melee in place. And But this wave, it's not like the end of the world if you let him off during this wave, because it's just a major. But imagine there's a ranger up here. Imagine there's a ranger gatekeeping you south and 2 blobs. And suddenly I can't just, like, run around this way easily. I have to deal with this. So having a method to keep him in place is really important. Okay, nice hit. And here we have a melee and a bat stacking up. Now we have to think, these are the waves now where it's important to recognize what happens when the melee digs. I have to generate a solution for him. So I'm going to show you one. We come to the bat safe spot. This is a great tile to start for melee safe spots. And we're going to run diagonally like this. This is going to safe spot the melee on the pillar. Diagonally like this. And see when the melee digs, he digs on top of me. Diagonally. Now he's stuck. And this is an even better solution because now whenever I want to, I can control the melee. As is what other guides don't teach you. This is the practical control of waves that matters for getting consistent runs. This is the stuff that makes you never die and never tank melees. So if you've learned one thing from this run, try and take away the idea of melee safe spotting, both understanding it's about to dig, how to prepare for it, and generating something you can work with. And again, that was literally, I think, the slowest it could have been. I was 1 tick too late. And I'm not going to attack him here, because if I attack him, I get dragged out like that. If I stay still and wait for him to dig out from under me, I can just right-click him and attack him and have no worries. Just trying to demonstrate, and I didn't quite get pulled out badly, but it shows the problem that if you're underneath him, you're going to get pulled out. Go to the bat safe spot and clean up. So I'll be using more and more and more of these melee safe spots, and you can try and learn as many as you can. The more you have in your arsenal, the easier the waves get. 1 barrage, and let's just hide for a second. There's a lot on us on that side. Let's get the Bofa on, nibble a safe spot, and just kill this guy. We can protect it quite easily, and it's only a bat, so that's okay. And now let's rigor on and kill this bat. Now I have to be aware the melee's gonna dig, but this mage is in the way, so let's go into the line of fire with the bat, praying range for a second. If the melee was coming down, I'd have to pray melee. But now I can just sit here, pray melee. This guy's stuck, and this is now okay. Let's use more restore, get my Bofa back on, and I'm waiting for an attack, and then going to click the major. And we now have him in this lovely safe spot. I can once again drag him down a couple of tiles to make it so that I can move to these 2 to take more hits. There we go. And every 2 or 3 major attacks, I'll go and do that. You can even get an attack in if you're careful. You can, if you really want to, set up an even better thing. An off-tick. If you're comfortable doing this, you can continue cycle. Notice he respawned. And it just takes 2 attacks away. So off-ticking looks tricky. And it's not easy. An off-tick like this, you can always back out of any time. Pray mage and run here is fine. We're going to do this for some waves with the ranger and the major, as long as we're setting it up in a controlled manner. Most likely, anyway. So we're going to take a hit from the melee here to keep him in place. No reason to let him dig. And here I'm 73 HP. No way. So we might even just double check we have our auto cast on and get a bit more out of it. Let's take off the legs or something. Getting to like 85 again is a really nice level. I've got 90 now, which is fantastic. But 90 is good. I'll stick with that. I can even use the shield. I'm going to keep it off until 50 still, but you could use the shield if you want to. Let's just do 1 barrage and stand still. Go to our proper gear, Bofa on, right-click the major, rigor run. Okay. Now I'm going to start a cycle. Notice I'm tanking the blob hits, but I'm going to start the cycle whenever I can. When the melee digs, I just go around the pillar and stay on the corner. And I'm going to pray mage when I make that action. Ready? Pray mage, round the corner, and this is now safe spotted. I can take a step down, and for the purposes of making this easier, I can kill the melee. I cannot reach the major from where I am right now, unless I stand over here to drag him in. And if I do that, the melee will get to me, so I'm just taking the easy option and killing it. Now if it respawns, it's going to respawn up there and it'll be half HP. Let's take our step here. The major drags 2 tiles in. I can now attack. I can also attack from the middle here. Any of these two tiles is fine. And I have a bit more freedom to wiggle around and maneuver. But the main thing there was stand here, get a nice one-tick alternation set up between the two, take my time to get it correct, don't just rush it, add rigor on for the DPS and the defense, and then when the melee digs, I'm aware that I can move from this side to this side. And it's a bit like how earlier, you know, it's like moving between these three, but for the melee, I want to trap it on the corner here, so it's more like this. It's a bit more like this kind of movement. Or working between these four tiles anyway. Like this to this, this to this, this to this, this to this for the melees. I'm 68 HP. I want the heal. The blob is last alive, and so we're going to use our phantom method to get more HP. Range spray, run back in a straight line, proper gear on, negatives off, augury on, one barrage, two barrage, and let's see what we get. 97 HP. This guy is going to come out, so I got to pray for him. There we go. Nearly full from like 60. One barrage, maybe click the ground. I'm going to get the Bofa on so I can attack from afar. And I'm going to attack this bat from afar as well. It's actually dead, which is great. Now I have a melee problem to deal with. Let's right click and attack him so as not to get like red clicked out. And I can't really seem to really get around this pillar to get to the major. There are some ways, but on a first cape, I'd recommend just killing this guy in this scenario. The major and everything is stuck. It's not in a position that's really deadly. Sometimes the best solution, just kill things. If he does respawn, I can simply run back around the pillar here, and then I can deal with him. But especially when you have like fully safe spotted large NPCs, sometimes I can just do this. Using the pillar, learning to use North Pillar again, really valuable. The more you get used to it, the easier solutions come up. And we're going to be last left alive with the blob as well. This blob we're going to kill from here, moving in. Same as always. There's the melee. Let's run into the pillar. There's a small grace period where he respawns where he can't attack you, which is great. Which means you have a moment to decide where to move. But because I already decided that if I'm standing here I can move back, it makes my decision a lot quicker. This is about the pre-planning part of Inferno that matters quite a lot. And just remembering to sort of pre-make a decision in case you have to do it. A bit more mental effort, but it goes tremendously far in saving your runs. Let's just get ready. One barrage. Let's just click the ground and stay still. If I let these guys go further, I'm going to get pulled out. Now let's attack this bat and just get rid of it. Rigor on. This melee might come down with the bat, which is going to be awkward. And it might end up with a position where it can attack me, like this. So let's go around the pillar. Safe spot always. Rigor on. And I'm just going to start alternating. Let's go back across and kill these bats. Blowpipe on. Maybe one pipe spec. I could throw two if I really want to, but one's enough. And now we can attack this guy. Oh, okay, I see. So he's respawned the melee. Let's kill the melee. Remember, if something's respawned and dies, it can't be respawned a second time. So in this case, it's not a waste of time to go kill it or anything. We've just got to get rid of it. Awkward wave. This happens a lot when you stand around here. A bat will safe spot the melee from going into the pillar. I can pray range for a moment here. Try and kill it off. And go back. And this will occasionally happen. It's very hard to look at. It's a really big problem for first capers where a melee is coming in and it's safe spotted with a bat. So instead of going straight to the pillar, it meets the bat and then runs down with the bat and hits you on the pillar. That's what happened there. So it's hard to recognize, but the main thing is I stood here to demonstrate it. I took a hit to show that, oh, I'm being attacked. And then I moved from here around the pillar. After we're here, we want to alternate between these two guys. Don't worry too much about the blob. If the melee hit us really hard, then we could consider using a piece of brew and getting maybe 3 doses, 2 doses in, followed by a restore. But it didn't hit us too hard, so nothing to worry about. Let's go to our proper tank gear and clean up here. 78 HP. It's okay for these waves. It's a bit tricky, but you can always brew if you want to again. Use more restore, prepare blood barrage. And I'll just tank maybe one more blob hit to get a bit more out of this. And then duck around the pillar. And now everything is going to be safe spotted, and I have a melee on me. If there was something else that could attack me from this side of the pillar, I'd be a bit more concerned. but going for that other nibbler there would be like considered okay. Again, not great if you're a first caper, but shows that in some cases if there's like one NPC to deal with in one particular area, going to that area after taking some damage isn't going to kill you, as long as you pray correctly. Okay, so I want to be able to attack the Major without killing these two guys, and my safe zone is always to be able to come back around this side of the pillar. So I can do some interesting stuff. Don't recommend this, I'd recommend just killing the Blob, but if I pray range, rigor on. Hello, Mr. Melee. Let's see if I kill the Major in time. If not, I duck back round. I set the cycle, starting with range, to make sure that I can move out praying mage. And then I alternated immediately, on demand, so that I can catch the Blob and the Major on this side. This means I don't have to worry about killing anything, other than the Major. I keep alternating until the Blob attacks, now I can stop, and start dealing with it normally. When the melee digs here, I can actually run down here. You have to do some specific pathing, but basically from here you run over here. I don't know why I'm killing this guy, I should be attacking the melee. When you start here, I've got a bit of time to demonstrate this now. If you're on this edge of the pillar, you have to immediately run from here, into the pillar, and then down. And if you are here, you can run down and across, in two fluid steps. And this will safe spot melees. In the same way that happened there, I was starting here, I ran in and down. And there's only one particular tile this can work on, so you have to be quite careful, but it is very strong to know it works. That's some Blood Barrages. It's a decently big hit, so I can switch back to my DPS stuff. And here I'm not going to burn any pipe specs, because these are getting a bit scary now in terms of waves. Let's go all the way back, keeping our line of sight. Negatives off, augury on, 1 barrage, 2 barrage. Let's see what we get. 85 HP, pray mage for the Major. And finish up with blowpipe. Great, we're 85, that's acceptable. And let's use more restore. We can send another Blood Barrage here. Okay, this is a cool little trap. Whenever you have melees converging from both sides, you can come up here. And when the melee is stuck on the corner, you can even right-click, attack and move back. And because you're going under for a tick while you do that, it's okay. You can also, like, go under here for a second. And it looks a bit scary, but it's not. This kind of stuff, when you're attacking from a pillar, you'll never get hit, even if it looks terrifying. But if you stay there for more than a second, you will be hit. What I'm waiting for now is for these two to dig. And when I dig, I'm going to go from here to here. Like this. They dig on each other, they stack up. Now I can attack the Major. I can even take a step here to take an attack from both of them. And get my camera ready. And there we go. I don't really recommend doing it, but you can do it is the point. And this will keep them in position, so I can move back here. For that little safe spot trick, this is why I have this tile marked in particular, is so I can see it through the pillar like that. Okay, melee digs, what do? Let's go around, and go down a little bit to make space. Another one's dug. Okay, let's run off. Let's just run. Run. Pray melee. And this is what happens if you don't have control of the melees. This is not a wave where it matters, but it demonstrates the problem that if you don't have control, there's a bit of randomness to their cycles, and so they're going to dig at different times. You safe spot one, but you can't do two of them. And even with just one, it might still cause problems with where you can move. And so we're now just going to kill him. We could, however... Ooh. I'm on the wrong prayer, so I take a bit of damage. But you could move from here to here. And this side, again, is very good for trapping melees. You can have melees here, you can have melees here, and they won't get to you. Now, I am fairly low HP. What I'm going to do after the Major dies is pray melee, step in. And I can take up my negatives. And I can make sure I'm on autocast barrage. And get some healing from them. Maybe not anymore. But when starting wave 50 and beyond, we do want to have decent HP, so... I've got 68 right now. 75. This is acceptable, albeit difficult. We're going to now use tank gear, including the top, no Virtus body, and augury if you want defense. 1 barrage and click the ground, and then pray accordingly. I can now move back, right click, and go for this guy as well. Great. So this is how we defend North Pillar. And in Crystal Armor, especially with Crystal Shield and all this, we are ridiculously tanky. Now we can put on Correct Gear, wait for the attack, click and pray. Bofa on, and off we go. These early waves will be Pretty fun to speed through, and it's fairly simple solves because there's just big NPCs, you run away from one of them. And as we get to 50s, you do want to be a bit more careful on pillar management. We need to not care about West Pillar at all, and we need to start caring a bit more about North Pillar when it gets low. But because we've been doing a good job keeping it quite high, it's still like a really healthy pillar. South Pillar's not there, which means we can stand here, and at no point will we be dragged out south when we barrage nibblers. And when the major spawns up here, it won't drag along the pillar and see us, which is great. So we've made sure South Pillar is okay to die before 50. We're now going to switch to our new tile, and we're going to use our tank gear when starting waves. Those are the main differences. Other than that, it plays out about the same. And now we're going to start to see lots of the things that I've been talking about previously come into play, but maybe a bit faster, maybe a bit more rapid. We're going to make some nicer, faster choices. We're going to make sure we set up our melee safe spots, and we're going to use a lot more one-tick alternation. Okay, tank gear on, augury optional, ice barrage, and notice this major does not see me. If the pillar was there, this major would see me. But now I can just pray range and kill the bat. Whenever I'm going for a nibble like this, just pray range just in case you get dragged out. You don't know if it's about to move. You don't know if you're in range necessarily. Good. And on wave 51, this is our first pillar stack. And the way we deal with pillar stacks is pretty simple. You attack the back NPC, or simple stacks like this. So from the middle of the pillar with a run on, we're going to get dragged out this way. It looks like you're going to get dragged that way, but you won't. If you come in and out like this, so right click and then back, you'll see that only the ranger attacks me. These guys are both 4-tick, that means they are off-ticked, which means the major respawned, but that was his attack. Ignore the bat doesn't factor in. And you can do this to get a feeling of the time. I call it testing. So if you want to test, you can even come out with like tank gear on. You can put on mage, like range spray augury, make sure you tank this in and out. And this will get you a feel for the starting time. This is something you just have to learn. There's no shortcuts here yet again. And when you do learn it, there are 2 ways to do it. You can come out, get the mage spray and go back in. This is like flinching. And I don't recommend flinching, but it can give you some experience. Or you can right click, come out, and alternate. And because you set this up as a pillar stack, if there are any blobs in the pillar stack, they won't see you. Notice I'm attacking the ranger. If you can get a click in to attack the major instead, this is good. Or if you can path out manually and then click him, that's good. But for the double pillar stack of ranger major, you have to attack the back one. If you attack the front one, it's not going to work. You can also manually path out. Now, my walkthroughs, these videos, won't help you very much when it comes to pillar stacks. And I recommend going and having a look at Exact's guide. I think Gnome Monkey might have a guide these days. There's also one in Weedy Raids. Any of those 3 guides are the ones that will show you some form of pillar stacks and how to deal with them. And so this might show you how to do the basic one, but if you get others with like a bat in it, a blob in it, stuff like that, the best bet is to go to one of those 3 places and combine those guides that have pillar stack solutions with what I'm doing here. Because this is very much, again, a practical solution to Inferno, and doesn't show you all the little pillar stack solutions. One barrage. Let's corner trap this major. This is like a good practice thing. Let's get rigor on and kill this bat. I can even pray range for it. And I've got a nibbler here. Let's make sure we're praying mage for the major. Come out, attack, and pray. We can defend this, so we're going to. Bofa on, back across. We want to kill the major first. Rigor off. Or, again, flick rigor if you want to speed this stuff up. I haven't been doing it, but you can flick it, you can do it on quick pres, you know, the usual. Mentioned it at the start. Anything like this is completely fine. So we have used 5 restores so far, and I have another 5 plus 4. And we are approximately halfway into the run, which is why I'm saying I'm gonna end on 4 restores. Because we just use such a small amount. In terms of prayer level, I haven't really touched on this, but in terms of prayer level, it is beneficial to get to at least 92 prayer before starting Inferno. It's a cost investment, but if you're PVMing in general and that's what you enjoy, then prayer levels help tremendously throughout the entirety of PVM, not just Inferno. 92 in particular is a good level because it's fairly high, it's not too much XP, but it's also enough that it gives you a good boost when you sip restores. The higher your prayer level, the more prayer you get restored. So it's very important. 97 is also a good level, 96 or 97, but 92 is the one I recommend to get to. Let's click the ground and pray range. We took a big hit, but that's okay. I can take the Bofa out, wait for the attack, mage spray, and go after this guy. I'm 48 HP, which is scary. Now, there's a bit of a rule of thumb. Once you get to wave 50, what you want to do, in the early waves, we heal off blobs. That's because blobs have 3 of them, and it's a faster way to heal than healing off anything else in the game. However, when we get to wave 50, you want to start healing off rangers. A few reasons for this. The main one is that ranger healing is consistent and a larger pool to heal from, whereas the blob stuff is a bit less consistent, and you're not always going to get really nice phantoms off. So in this case, between the 2 of them, I'm actually going to kill the blob first, and I'm going to make sure to stand up next to it when it dies. I'm going to stand here. Oh, the ranger is actually safe spotted, so I can do some funny stuff where I barrage like everything over here. This is some speedrun tactic clumping. I'm getting some good heals off like everything. Take a step back. I can take off all my crystal stuff if I want to here. And I can flip my augury, can do whatever I want to do. I notice my HP is like 95 here, that's acceptable. Anything above 90 is really fine. Put our tank gear on. Let's isolate the major. And now I've got my rigor on. And I'm going to choose a DPS solution. Oh, I'm actually just praying incorrectly. That's quite lucky. So, going for the nibblers there was actually a really bad choice. But I'm in tanky gear, got rigor on, so I'm tanking just fine. Let's use a blowpipe spec, maybe another one. I'm 90 HP. And notice I'm not even going to flick this blob. I'm not even going to flick the blob. I'm literally just going to kill the ranger. I can just keep tanking him until I go and click this guy. So that's why blowpipe specs are so valuable. That's why DPS solutions are so valuable, because anything other than a major, I can just kill it. Blob there, kill it. Melee there, kill it. Ranger there, kill it. And you are quite tanky. If you notice you're taking like excessive damage, firstly check your prayer, secondly drink a brew. My first mistake there was killing the nibbler, which dragged me into the major line of sight, so if I was actually praying range, that might have been deadly. So don't nibbler chase. I kind of like went to chain it because it was just there. The better solution would be to have left it, or checked my pathing on the pillar, or used Bofa to get it from a long range, instead of just rushing it with a blowpipe. Or ignoring it entirely, and going after the ranger and just killing the ranger. That's an awkward spawn, because when we start here, and the major can see me, the ranger can see me, you have to isolate one immediately. I chose to isolate the biggest NPC, because I can't kill the major immediately, and that's usually the best choice. So coming over here, isolating the major, dealing with whatever's here, DPS solution one of them, great, works fine. Mistake on the nibbler, don't copy that of course. But otherwise, my other solution, if the major's here, would be to run from here and immediately go to this side of the pillar, where only the major can see me, and then do something with these guys when they stack up inevitably like this. So that's a bit more of a breakdown on that wave, because it was the first, like, tricky one where we had a multiple spawn on me. Okay. Take off our gear. This is our little procedure. Get a double barrage off. There's 80 HP. Let's go after the bat as well. I'm still 80 HP. 85. Gonna get another barrage off. 88. Not bad. We can run with this. Tank gear on. Augury on if you want to. One ice barrage. Click the ground. Notice the major doesn't attack me. Let's take a step into the pillar to be a bit more safe, and then attack this bat. This tile is still a bit scary because a lot of the time, if I'm standing here and I only stay here, sometimes things will safe spot and the major will come down the pillar and kill you. So you want to either be like tucked into the pillar here or here. These two, in fact, these 3 tiles are usually better. Even if we start here, we want to come back and end here for the beginning of the wave. Now this is a nice stack, but you can see that like you can test it if you don't take a step out and just attack, and just watch the blob. Does it attack me? Just visually look at it and have a feel like, does it attack me? And you can do this for a lot of NPCs, a lot of like weird stacks you haven't seen before. Maybe put on tank gear, crystal shield, just stand here for a second and see if you can attack the major. Like, I can do that. Can it attack me? And if it does, take a step back and think, okay, what do I got to do here? How do I make this easier? One way might be to take a step back and like make this angle between you and the blob, instead of like this angle, having it like be a bit further down. So maybe this angle would be a bit safer in some cases. And it's as simple as like a bit of like direct line of sight sometimes. But for a pillar stack like this is completely fine. Can stand here, can kill it. Easy to go. These like compound block stacks, these are hardly the biggest problem compared to like direct NPC stacks. When he dies, let's take a step behind the pillar. And whenever you have NPCs that are stuck together, wiggle. This wiggle trick usually unsticks them like that. And now you have a better idea of what's where. So I can pre-range and come out on this side. And this blob is now stuck over there, and we've got an even better, easier stack to deal with. So wiggling is very valuable. That's both of these bats, get rid of them. One of the big benefits of Bofa is that we can attack them from afar. And now we have an even simpler stack. So we're trying to make things less and less and less complex over time. Sometimes the big pillar stacks are a bit overwhelming. Just play it safe, test stuff, get a feel for what's going on. Not bad. Took a 1, let's go. I'm not low enough HP that I have to go back and Phantom Barrage, but I can still do a Blood Barrage up close for 99, which is like that. Must pray mage at the end for him. But our tank gear on, 99 HP, which is great. Nice Barrage. Let's just pray range for a second here and figure out what we're doing. I can, if I want to, off-tick the Major and the Ranger. That looks something like this. Wait for the attack. Here's another solution. If I'm standing here, I'm just gonna flick the blob while I talk. If I'm standing here, in the same position as before, my other solution would be to kill this blob. And you can alternate while doing this. And when he's dead, I can come in, I can Blood Barrage, make sure I'm right-clicking everything very carefully, very meticulously. Proper gear on, kill this guy too. And now I have a solution where I can just stand still. If you can off-tick the Major and the Ranger like that, coming from here to here, making sure that you're waiting to see the animation and then like, you know, okay, Mage Spray, Range Spray, go for it, it's a good solution. Otherwise, we have to deal with this section anyway, and see how we're like making issues for ourselves. Now I have to take a step out, kill this blob, deal with all the blobs, and they might still respawn anyway. Let's see how this plays out. Take a step back. Shouldn't alternate. The setup is not particularly clean. Just imitating a first caper. Switch to our proper gear. And I've got to be so careful which one I even click here. Let's brew. See, this is the problem. When you can't get these guys in a nice, easy way. Let's wait for the attack. This is the problem. These little guys, they're not so easy to deal with after all. And now I've got another one. Let's try and get an alternation. And this is why, if you can choose the easy option to simply flick the Major and the Ranger instead of dealing with all the mini-blobs, it's going to be so much easier. If I had just stuck to that first solution, great. And granted, it's tricky as a first caper to do that kind of thing and just be confident about it. But you're not going to get first cape on your first attempt. So sometimes, taking a bit of a different route to try and solve waves, one especially where it contains like easy flicking patterns, like 2 NPCs together, it will build your confidence. If you get it right once or twice, it'll build your confidence to do it more. And you'll end up with less solutions like this, where you have to brew and go through that process and waste supplies. And more where you can just, okay, I'm confident to flick this guy and that guy, we're good to go. So I highly recommend trying to get good at doing that. Or at least attempting it on some easy waves, where it's like a simple setup. It will make life a lot easier. From now on, I'm not going to do many more of these things where I try and like take the easy route. I'm going to go for the double flick where I can do. And it'll be a lot easier when I do it. Let's click the ground. I don't want to get dragged out towards him. Let's pray range, because the Major's safe spotted. And we notice the Ranger's dragging around the pillar. Okay. Let's choose to DPS the Ranger. It can attack me, therefore I can attack it. This pillar, I need to ignore it. If I go for these nibblers, I die. So what I'm going to do is just DPS solution this. The melee is going to dig at some point, which is another reason why I want to eliminate this NPC. If the melee digs, I can always take a step up and safe spot the Ranger. And now I've got this melee to deal with. I'm going to wait for him to dig. I'm going to move from here across. There we go. Now, I want to deal with these guys on the pillar, but I need to not worry too much about it. What happens now if the ranger respawns? What do I do? The answer would be to run back behind the side of the pillar, and I'm just going to have this idea in my head before I have to do it. Because if I don't have the idea and the ranger spawns, I'm in shit. Here we go. Run. And now I thought about it, and I saw it happen, so I just make the action. And again, this is really important as a first caper to be aware of what's going on. You need to understand the ranger can respawn, and therefore if it does, I gotta do something. Where do I have to go? What do I have to do when I get there? What do I pray? And it's not very difficult to do these things. I'm gonna set up this pillar stack by stepping out manually. Clicking major, ranger, ranger, major, clicking the major. Like that. And I can either alternate, or two-tick. Two-tick is really nice. I don't really recommend learning it, but if you see me doing it, it's because I want to talk. And it's just like a nicer cycle. You can be on the wrong two-tick, in the same way you can be on the wrong one-tick, and it doesn't necessarily catch blobs. So it's a nice cycle, and it's nice for me to talk about stuff when I'm doing it, but I'd still recommend one-tick alternating when you get that going. When you're doing two NPCs directly, you can two-tick it if you can find the right timing, but again, first caping it's quite hard. And one-tick alternating or like one-tick exact flicking is much better. Okay, let's go. Let's just stand still. Let's move back over here a little bit, give the bat time to move in, rigor on. Let's kill this bat. Let's come back around to this safe spot to make sure we have line of sight over there. Just send a barrage. And now I've got a melee to deal with. What do I do when the melee digs? How do I deal with this melee? I've got an idea. Let's move around the pillar. He's respawning right now, so let's move over here. Now the mage is going to drag in. We know that from this side, I take a step here and a step here. Or from here, I take a step in and then down. So he digs. Let's go around the pillar, pray mage, and come down. Gotta do it fairly quickly, but if I take a melee hit, it's not the end of the world. But if I take a mage hit, it is the end of the world. So we gotta pray mage immediately, then come down. And now I have the melee in control. So instead of going for a quick DPS solution or like panicking, all I had to think about was, what do I do to control the melee? Take a step in, and now we have control. And now our focus is to maintain this control. One more attack. Trying to get nice and zoomed in, make it easy. Prepare our clicks. This isn't particularly high APM or anything. Oh, I just didn't hit the flick, okay. But one melee hit's not the end of the world again. If I make a mistake, and, you know, you will make mistakes, you get to heal up at the end of the wave. As long as you don't make, like, 5 mistakes in a row, that's where you die. Mistake number 1, which would lead to 2 and 3 and 4, taking hits, would be to not set up the melee trap. So again, we have a major gatekeeping this entire side we have to pray mage against. We can duck round the pillar over here, but if we duck round the pillar over here like we were before, and we sit here, the problem, I'm just going to heal while I explain this. If I come around the pillar like this, and the melee digs on me, well I've got the melee and the ranger. So this solves the major problem, but not the two together. And then lastly, coming back around the pillar, once it's like prepared, we know we can go down here, or from here to here. And either way, we end up on this set, with the major closer we can attack with, and the melee in a position we can move back and forth in. Now, it may seem a bit silly, because it's been like 30 waves since I explained that at the start of this like video, and now it's only just coming back into play. But this is the thing with Inferno. You'll have a lot of things where they don't immediately seem useful if you're learning them or watching these videos, and then eventually they'll come back into play later on. Let's isolate an NPC. We're isolating the ranger. Let's use rigor and kill these bats. If I have to, I'm going to kill this melee. I'm going to DPS the melee. DPS, DPS, DPS. Notice it's actually safe spotted on the bat. If I kill the bat, this guy's going to get to me, and I don't want that to happen. As soon as he dies, I can kill this mini blob and then the bat. So I've literally DPS'd the entirety of the wave, and it's all dead. Now they can respawn, so I have to be aware. And I was getting ready, I had rigor on, right? Okay, I can put this on for a second. Attack him. Make sure to catch the mage prey. And the idea here is like, I was pretty much hovering on my blowpipe specs. If I think I got a pipe spec, I will do it immediately. And I'll probably send 2 of them. And if I'm still looking bad after 2 pipe specs, then I start brewing. And then I start thinking, okay, now it's just time to maybe change position, Do I kill the NPC? What's its HP like? But primarily, DPS solve and double blowpipe at the ready. Double pipe spec at the ready. And that's enough to solve all these waves. Scary position again, where the melee was safe spotted on the bat. It turns out in that particular one that it was stuck on the bat. So that's why I switched to the melee early, was firstly because of that, and secondly because it doesn't matter if the bat hits me, but it does matter if the melee hits me. So I have to kill the melee first. That's the thought process, and all you have to do when something like that is happening is more or less ignore bats. Not fully, but don't have too much emphasis on bats compared to the other NPC. Like, the melee is always going to be a priority, or the ranger will be a priority if you have to kill a ranger and tank it the entire time. Biggest NPC first, but not mages. You just cannot kill mages quick enough. Now we're going to heal up. All our gear off. And we're going to try and heal straight to 99. We are now on wave 59, so we're getting into the 60s. These are the tricky waves. These are the ones where you have to pay attention. And again, don't worry, don't, like, you know, if your chat box is open and you're scared, like, oh, I'm in the 60s now, new PB, but now this is terrifying, don't be. You're still solving the waves the same way as before. There's nothing different about it. You just have to focus on making the right decisions. The wave number doesn't really matter. Some wave 60s are free, some are not. Tank gear on. I'm going to start with Augury on this time for mage, for defense. 1 Ice Barrage. And let's just stand here, pray mage, rigor on, and kill this melee. They are off-ticked. Oh, yeah, they are off-ticked, but you may not know this is a first caper. Double blowpipe spec immediately. And brew. Okay. There we go. There are better ways to do it, but I wanted to showcase that you can get through it. Ah, of course he respawns. Hello. Okay, so let's figure out what to do now. I'll talk about the wave in a minute. I'm wiggling on the pillar to make sure they unstick. Good. If I kill the melee again, he won't respawn. So let's kill him. These guys are stuck on his edge. Oh, and by the way, if I haven't talked about it yet, this tile marker, you should try and get these. On NPC indicators, it will help a lot to determine whether things are stuck. Let's run back around the pillar. And now there's nothing else that can get to us or be a problem for us. Good. Let's get pipe on. We're going to alternate this stack while the mage gets closer. And if you can do a pretty big maneuver, you can continue the alternation. Or you can just take a blob hit and move across. There are some fun things you can add to these runs like that. But the idea there is, like, I'm getting gate kept from the melee, from the major, from the ranger and the blob on this side. The major is over here. I can't just run out and get onto all of them. So with a single NPC on me, i.e. the melee, my solution there is, okay, rigor on, get my proper gear on, start DPSing immediately. I took a hit, okay, double pipe spec, and brew. Right click, pipe spec, or right click, brew, right click, brew. And there are some cases where you will just die. But it's pretty rare. Pretty rare. For it to both pass accuracy and then hit you a big number, not likely. So don't be too afraid of doing stuff like that, and if you do die, well, honestly, just bad RNG, go next. Now there are things you can do to skew it in your favor, and I'm going to start doing them as we get to these waves. We're on wave 61. Wave 61, 2, and 3 are the hardest waves in the Inferno. And if you get past these waves, you're pretty likely to get a cape. So what I'm going to do is make life easy for myself. Got the melee here. I'm going to use a dose of brew to get to 115. Dose of restore. Put my proper gear on, and a dose of bastion. Now I'm ready to DPS whatever comes at me. Gonna catch the blob flick. Maybe send another one over here. Okay. I can't reach any of these guys. I can attack the ranger. When the melee digs, I'm gonna have a bit of a problem to work with here, so I'm gonna choose this method I did before. I'm setting up the safe spot. I'm not gonna kill the ranger just yet. Actually, well, okay. You could kill the ranger here. I'm gonna kill him anyway. But from here I can move back and set up a melee safe spot. I can also kill the bat from here. And there's a chance the melee will... Okay, he's not. Mage spray. Run down. Bofa on. Let's kill them. Let's kill the melee. Kill the melee. DPS. I'm going to alternate these guys when I can. There we go. I took a second to set it up, but now it's set up. And now I'm going to go to Nibbler safe spot and just quickly try and support my pillar. I'm just going to pray Augury for the defense. I might take a bit of damage. That's okay. Maybe Bofa on. Let's attack with Bofa. I'm just going to tank this guy. It's okay. Back on the major. Ranger's behind the pillar. Okay. Let's begin alternating when I can. Rigor on the entire time. These waves are tricky, I need my defense prayers. Keep alternating until the blob attacks you. Now I can stop, and I can get comfortable again. Okay, let's kill this blob and heal off it, and then kill it, and then heal the ranger and do the same thing. Not bad. Let's switch to our proper gear. Good. So another wave focused on a lot of DPS. I had to not panic there. I had to go set up my safe spot for the melee. I chose to start here and then come back down into the major with a nice safe spot that I can control or kill the melee in. It looks complex, but we're building off stuff that we've learned throughout the entire run. The more times you do runs like this and have a focus on doing it, the higher chance you are going to be able to recreate this in one of your own runs. You can't just magically do it, but over time you'll get there. There's 94 HP, and that's okay. If I wanted to, I can brew again, restore again, bastion again, but I'm going to try and keep my bonus here, and my bastion here. One barrage, click the ground, and let's not go for the another safe spot right yet. Let's kill this bat. Looks like everything's going to stack up nicely, which is great. This is one of those blessed waves. And now I can go for the nibblers. Notice my pillar is like beginning to be scary, but still like 1/3 HP, and there's only like 3 or 4 waves left. So if we've done 60 odd waves, and it's taken that much HP, 3 waves of like hard attack against the pillar isn't going to kill it. It just doesn't matter anymore. So we've done enough work here to secure the pillar. Now the melee's dug. Let's pray melee, wait for him to like wiggle out from under us, and we can attack him. And we have a stack to solve, but like letting this guy dig and not sort of interrupt us while we're dealing with it is much easier. So a tiny bit of patience to solve this makes sense. And now I've got to figure out what I do about this wave. So I can't attack from this side because there's 2 together. I can attack from this side, and I'm going to probably pray mage in case he can see me. But there are some tricks here we can use. For example, if I come all the way back, and I step in and out like this, this frees the NPC if it's a bat or a melee. And now I have a bat that's like stuck. I showed this before, how if I'm standing here, I can move in and out to free the melee. Or if I'm standing up here and there's a melee over here, I can stand in and out to bring him around again. And now I have a major that can wiggle, which is nice. And there's a few things I can do here, but the easiest is to attack from this side and alternate this stack. Keep alternating until the blob attacks. There it is, now we can move. And at this point, we're on wave 62, about to enter 63 with 6 restores. This is excessive. This is plenty. Again, 0 flicking, 0 prayer conservation, plenty of reggae usage, and we're still going to end with multiple left. Let's go after the ranger. I'm 99 right now, so I'm not too fussed about which one of these survives. If I was lower HP, I'd like to keep the ranger alive last, but for now it's okay. And let's keep our restore like above 50, so there's 80 now, which is good. And wait for this blob to attack us. As soon as he stops moving is the time to flick prayers. This is true whether he's close or far away. Oh, took a second to group up, that's okay. Make sure to pray mage for this last guy. Tank gear on. Nice wide open angle. Augury on for defense. One ice barrage. Let's click the ground. And now I can start flicking this guy. Let the attack hit me and flick. Let's go to the nibbler safe spot. And now barrage here. Attack hits me, I flick. Okay. Let's wait for the attack to hit me and flick. There's a melee here, and I have to deal with him at some point. I'm going to get ready to attack him. And what I'm going to do is when the melee digs on me, I'm going to start praying melee and attacking the melee. I have to get rid of him, otherwise this becomes a really tricky scenario. So let's keep flicking as best I can. Now we pre-melee, and we can attack and double and burn 2 pipe specs if needed. There is a melee flick you can do that looks like this. And it's the same as one tick alternating, like this, and this will catch 75% of blob damage. So it's not bad, but it's not, like, perfect. Let's keep alternating if you're in this cycle, and then just stop. And now I've got to figure out how to deal with this. This is a tricky stack. In times like this, especially on late waves, I'd suggest brewing. Get a couple of doses in you. Restore. Bastion. And just, like, keep flicking and figure this out. This is one of those tricky ones where you have to just look at guides and be aware. This is a really tricky one because I'm being gatekept by a blob as well. Some people will actually sit here and like look at a guide while they flick this blob, but the solution is a bit tricky. What we do is we move from the middle, we move out to this tile here, manually pathing. We can just flick him based on when the attack hits us. We move this tile manually, and then click the major and alternate. And that seems ridiculous, but it looks something like this. And you see how only the major attacked me. This is one of those things that you just have to know. That's why this guide is not going to help you with pillar stacks, and you should use another guide in conjunction. But, in short, with a blob in the front, or a bat in front, you manual path from the middle out to this tile, and then you'll be able to attack the back NPC. So, let's put Rigor on. Let's flick this blob one more time. And when this attack hits us, that's the entire cycle. This looks ridiculous, but it's not that bad. It's adding one more action to an existing stack. Problem solve. Problem solution. We're potted, we have Rigor on. Even if we were tanking 1 or 2 NPCs, this would be okay. Let's try and move around the pillar. Keep alternating till this attack hits us and the next one comes out. Okay, now we can stop. Looks scary, but it's one wave you have to do something like that, perhaps. And that'll get you through the run. The actual solution's not that bad, but the timing of it, awkward. And unfortunately, there are some waves that are just gonna kill first capers, and that's probably one of them. So, you have to know, you have to look at the guides and practice and be aware of some of the solutions. And if in doubt, maybe kill the ranger. Maybe Bofa the ranger, pray mage, and use brews and really try and DPS it down. But there are some ways and some solutions that'll get you by that kind of wave, even if you don't know the perfect solution. But tricky one, that one. Tricky. Okay. So we're on wave 63. We're an hour and a half in. I generally want first capers to be doing their capes in under 2 hours. You can do 90-minute capes if you're fast and you're like not explaining stuff, of course, but this is about right. Okay, one barrage. Okay, let's safe spot this melee really quickly. Let's put on Bofa and attack this guy. And this is off-ticked. Attack, he attacks. So I can catch the flicks if I want to. But just showing it's possible, really. And now I want to protect my pillar. Let's use double low bite spec here. Try and just finish it up. This pillar's not that low. I'm just going to kill this melee, because I need to get across here and it's going to be awkward. Or I need to stand back here and Bofa. Of course, now I'm not protecting my pillar as much as you could be. So your pillar should hopefully be a little bit higher than this. But it goes to show, like, with practically 0 help on the pillars themselves, it's still okay, and this is like the second to last wave that it actually matters on. So one more wave of this, and we'll be completely fine. I tend to leave it a bit closer to the edge than it should really be allowed to get to, but it's a demonstration ultimately. Alright, here comes the melee. I'm just very unfussed about this melee. If you want to, you can practice the drag, which is this drag here. You move in and out, and now I can kill it. What I showed earlier, we've done it like 2 or 3 times now in this run, so this is a really useful one, just to have, you know, just to know about it. And now I don't have to worry about the ranger, he's stuck there as well. If another melee respawns, this guy's gonna die before it becomes a problem, so it's okay. I'm 99 HP, so I can just chill here and kill this guy. The next wave is double ranger major. And it's a bit scary. But the main thing is you can isolate the major and pray range, and that's a very easy solution. So I've got to be a bit careful of my pillar, so let's start with an ice barrage, augury on for the defense. 1 barrage. Let's come all the way back here. And pray range now. Make sure to get these guys. Great. Another awkward one, where we have a gatekeeping NPC and a stack. There are some solutions here. The most easy one is to stand here and pull the ranger closer. I can now attack him, and I can kill him. There are some really cool solutions, and I'm going to demonstrate one of them, but the simple one is attack this guy, kill it, and then you have a standard stack. This is another solution. This is an off-tick solution. This is one I like to show occasionally for first capes. All I'm doing is I'm stepping out there and catching the ranger flick, and then coming back across here and catching the major flick. And then you can either do whatever kind of flicking pattern you want, but it is nicely set up for a 2-tick. You can do all sorts of patterns, right? Doesn't matter how you do it, as long as you have a flick in mind. And again, the easy solution, kill this guy, and then do the pillar stack as normal. So, now that we're on wave 66, this is double major, I don't have to worry about my pillar at all. I can simply just ignore it, and if it dies, it dies. Remember, you don't want to be standing next to it when it dies, it'll deal half your HP and damage, and that's pretty brutal. From these waves onwards, I'm going to be camping Rigger pretty much permanently. In some runs I usually flick a little bit, in this run I've flicked like not at all, as a proof of concept. Let's get up to the middle. We are full HP, so just a standard ice barrage is fine, otherwise blood barrage this. And then clean up with blowpipe or whatever it is. And then we can attack. We're going to come roughly to the center of these two between them. You can drag them on the pillar if you want to make life easy, doesn't really matter. And I'm going to sip a Bastion dose. From this point onwards, again, we're going to be using a lot of Rigor. And for the Jads, the solution for each of them is pretty much the same, where we stand and how we deal with it. And I'll be marking the tiles and showing you where to move. You don't need marked tiles for Jads, you just don't. You can very quickly find the tile you need to be on. And the camera angle is quite important. So, Jad, single Jad spawns, this is north facing, that's your north pillar. Jad spawns around here. We want to be up here somewhere when he spawns. Single Jad has 5 healers. Triple Jads have only 3 healers each. So there's less to tag and less to do. You can blood barrage them if you don't have chins, or I mean you won't have chins really, but you can blood barrage them, you can Bofa them. If they're really close, you can pipe them. But take your time tagging. Don't worry if Jad heals back up as long as you get the flicks. And remember, triple Jad does not consist of much high APM, it's relatively low APM. About 30 APM to flick the Jads, which is like nothing. Let's hope it doesn't respawn. Probably is going to. Please! Good. We come down here somewhere, just like in this area, like in the corner. Have a prayer up, and then attack him. We're going to use this tile for Jad. This tile here is very good. 1 tile away, north facing like this. And all the Jads you fight are going to be using this tile. This tile tends to be very good for safe spotting healers. Let's put a Rigor on now. This tile tends to be very good for safe spotting healers in a lot of varieties. So as we get to them, and they spawn like this, we're going to be able to move in and out or tag them freely from this tile. You can also, if you have lots of Bastion doses, use a dose of Brew, and then a dose of Restore, then a dose of Bastion to get a bit more out of it. Let's tag the far one here. I can Blood Barrage this corner one. I can even switch to Blowpipe and get these two. And notice if I stand here, I've only got 1 healer attacking me. These guys are all stuck. This guy's stuck. There's only 1 healer on me. I can even pray melee for it on single Jad. And if there's 2 healers on me, I walk north. 2 healers equals walk north. 3 healers equals walk north, until there's 1 healer on you. And as an example, if I walk here, they tend to stack up like this instead, so I can keep walking, and I can keep reducing the amount of healers on me by doing this. But as it stands, this is lovely. Let's run to the center of the room where this light square is, like anywhere in this light area. Rigor on, of course, and move to this position for the south Jad. You want to clearly see all Jads at the same time. And just have your prayer book open. We started with quite high prayer, which is great, and we're going to maintain our prayer throughout the entire thing. If you get a moment to sit more prayer, do it. But otherwise, just keep your book open. Like, I can sit here, for example, and go back on Jad. And we want to keep it topped up as high as possible, because running out of prayer is like the worst thing ever. If you make a mistake, just keep on going. Worst thing is panicking and not being able to just keep your flicks up. And now we're going to look for the NPC at the back, right-click and attack, making sure to catch the Jad flick, catch the Jad flick, maybe go for the next one, catch the Jad flick, and then attack this guy. And now we're going to take a step back, like this. And this time we ran over this guy because we didn't attack him, he was stuck on us. Whenever there's one stuck on you, he can't really attack you yet because he's focused on Jad. If you step over him, the one coming from the other side is going to get safe spotted. This is simply to say that running north is good. And the more you run north, the easier your time is going to be with healers. And now I've got no healers on me at all. You won't get this for every single one, but you'll get it for a few and it makes life easy. Come on, Bofa. When I get a moment after this guy dies, I'll use another dose of prayer. For the time being, it's mostly just focusing on flicking. If you're taking damage from the minions, don't worry too much. You do have brews you can use, but it's not really the end of the world. Let's use a dose of restore, get these flicks, and then let's run between them. You can run around them as well, but between them is fine. And doesn't matter which one you go and kill, as long as you come to the same position, which is over here. So I can either stand here or here, and this is fine. We have 4 restores left, this is plenty. For first capes without Ring of the Gods and Devouts, which is what most people will use these days, you probably need like 3 restores to be comfortable at Zark. And I have significantly more. And I'm wearing this stuff, so... Let's right-click each of the healers, grab their attention, keep flicking the Jads. And again, standing still in this position is really nice. Only one of them is on us. Use more dose of restore. Oh yeah, this is a run where I've like practically not flicked at all. Some of the other runs I flick a little bit and I end up with like 4 or 5 restores. I think I've ended one with 7 now, I'm not sure, it's a lot of restore. And we are 105 minutes into the run. Again, a little bit of healer damage, not the biggest steal ever. You can always brew back up. Let's run away from these healers. Remember not to be in melee range of Jad, that'd be very bad. And now we have the last Jad available. We can also use the last Jad and its healers to heal up. We can do this for single Jad as well, and you've probably seen this if you've seen fight cave guides or done fight caves, which I presume you have if you're watching this video. So, it's a simple thing where you tag them all and then run through Jad. We can actually Blob barrage this entire corner here, which is great. We can also pray melee. Same as it is for Jad. Group them up and then run through. Gotta keep praying melee. And now we're going to bring them up to this corner, this side of Jad. I'm going to keep moving them up. Take off all our negatives. Make sure we catch the flicks, augury on, and go. Make sure we're on autocast. And this will get us from 75 to 99. Sometimes you'll hit Jad as well. Not the most accurate thing ever. Alternatively, if you have like 4 brews, you're perfectly fine using brews here. You'd have practically no issues if you just use brew. This is of course quite slow, so... It's usually a bit more accurate than this. There's 99. Let's put on our proper gear and DPS again. And remember, you can't do this for triple Jads, you can only do this for the first Jad, the single Jad, or the last Jad of triples, because if you try and run through them, it's going to off-tick them with the other Jads, which is not so nice. I should be using Rigor here to clean up. Great. Let's run up and use more restore doses. I'm going to reposition my potions and have Rigor on and ready, so that we can start the fight with it on. We're currently 105 range, and I want to be higher. So I'm going to use a dose of Bastion here. I'm going to right-click Zerk. And we just attack as soon as we see the screen move. There we go. Follow the shield. Maybe 1 attack here and then go to the corner. Now these safe spot tiles I hope you have. If not, look on Google. You want 4 and no more. And you can get dragged on any of these tiles here on either side. So you have to be a bit careful. We're going to leave Rigor on the entire fight and you can stand liberally. So move to the safe spot. There's the attack, which means I can move to the next one. A lot of right clicks here is good. So there's the attack here. I can move to the next one. You can either manually path there or you can drag yourself on these tiles, but you can't go past the safe spots. And admittedly, another guide, an actual guide, will be probably more useful to you than watching a Zuck from me doing it. Now the mage has spawned, and I'm gonna tag him. We're gonna go for a tank strat. We got enough brews. Let's attack the ranger. Get the blowpipe ready. And if he ever hits me very high, I've got 2 blowpipe specs at the ready. I'm just hovering over them. Just hovering, just hovering. But we're really tanky in Crystal. I mean, we didn't take any damage at all. If he hits us, we have 4 brews to use, and we have 2 pipe specs, which is pretty common to use at least one of them there. That was a bit lucky. Some of you are probably complaining like, I did my cape and I got hit 50 damage every time. It happens. But the point is, like, if I did get hit, I would be ready to deal with it. Let's use more restore. With the Zuck fight, you want to get him down to 600. And after 600, the sets are paused. So that's why we're not killing the major just yet. You can also move like this if you want to be a bit more careful. And you have to be exactly on the safe spot as long as you're not, like, past the safe spot. If you're like here, it's okay. But if you move past the safe spot for these middle ones, you're gonna die. A little bit of rigor flicking can be nice, but again, we have infinite prayer, so don't worry too much. The 0 flick run, who would have thought? There's the attack. And our DPS with Bofa is fairly consistent, which is okay. Be nice to be at 600 now, but I'm not complaining. You'll get a feel for like how you move at Zuck. The one big rule is follow the shield. The shield is the law. If you are behind the shield or ahead of the shield, you are dead. The safe spot is only a safe spot when the shield is next to you. And if there's no shield, then it doesn't work right, so... Okay, now Zuck is below 600, now we have to attack the major. We can stem again, quite liberally, whenever we want to. And Jad procs at 480, or 479. Can't attack the major from here, but I can attack Zuck once or twice. There's the attack, so I'm free to move. Let's attack this major. Get close to the safe spot. Lots of right clicks are good here. The more right clicks you do, the more likely you are to not misclick. Lots of patience. Right click is Zuck. Great. There's Jad. We can attack Jad from both sides with a Bofa. And you want to flip your camera. You can also do this like blowpipe run. This blowpipe run is quite good with Bofa because it's 4-tick. Or you can just attack and move across. For these healers, you want to be in the center of the room before barraging. Otherwise, if you're on the corner, on this side, you're going to get dragged out. You can usually barrage Jad from this side, though. We don't care about the healer damage here. There's the Zuck attack. We can move. Next safe spot. And we just want to make sure we have our prayer book open. At all times. Prayer book open. Get ready for the hits. There's a really quick Jad. Let's move to the safe spot, and now we're going to brew. We're going to brew to 115. Or like 110 is okay. Dose of Restore. And now we're going to use a dose of Bastion. We can stem whenever we want again. And we don't have to pray anything right now. A lot of players recommend Redemption for healers. I do not. If you go low enough to use Redemption, firstly, you can die through Redemption, and it's not that unlikely. People say it is, but it's fairly likely. Okay, so now 240 is the number, so we can hit it from here. Let's start attacking him. There's healers. What we're going to do is we want to attack one and just move with the shield. And if we get to like 80 HP or something like that, we're going to start being very careful. And we're going to start brewing. Now we have to stay with the shield completely. You can't just move randomly. You can't just dodge ahead of the shield or anything. You really have to stay completely with it. Don't get greedy, don't get dragged out. If you're not sure what's going on, just get back to safety and stay with the shield. I'm 70 HP, I'm going to start brewing here. I'll take one click out of my blowpipe walk to maybe brew. You can duck into the corner for a second and then back out. Let's get more brew in me. Blowpipe, blowpipe, blowpipe. You can also Bofa these guys, and Bofa's fine. I'm like, here, I don't want to hit it because I might get blowpiped out. So now I could switch to Bofa, but because I was brewed to full, because I had my range pot up, there was very little issue. Now, this is post-enrage suck. We have to stay with the shield. You can stay slightly ahead of it, like this is okay. Clicking like this is fine. But if I was behind the shield, I'd be dead. Right clicks here. These safe spots on the side are still good. And you just want to move like this with the shield. This is the perfect position. You can be doing this. This is okay. But you can't be doing this behind. You can also like blowpipe walk like this with a Bofa. But careful not to get dragged from these tiles. You got to move over these tiles. These three are the danger zone tiles. And attack from here. One more attack. Move with. And don't get dragged here anymore. You do it like that, maybe. That's about it. And then ahead of the shield. This is kind of far behind. That's about as far as you want to be. If I was one tile behind, I'd be dead. It's a very, very thin limit. See? Want to move ahead of the shield here? Move ahead of the shield. We're going to tag the major here. And back on Zuck for a second. I can keep attacking the major here for now. The shield is very high HP, don't worry about it at all. Most Bofa capes will have one set, maybe two. You'll have two sets, maybe three. And I can't quite kill the major. Let's attack the ranger. And I can just Bofa him for now, to keep it easy. I have no pipe specs, let's brew. 3 doses brew, 1 dose restore. Keep attacking. Another dose brew. Honestly, one of the worst rangers I've ever seen. That's all of our brew used. But that's the last one we gotta deal with. If you want to off-tick sets, some of my other videos have off-ticks for sets. Showing you how to do it from the mage side. I didn't want to show it in this run and we got kind of like pummeled for it, which is fine. That's the price to pay. If you're doing it from the mage side, if the shield goes left to begin with, then trying to off-tick is really nice. And it's a good skill if you want to do more capes. Not necessary, but it helps a lot. All I was doing there, Bofa hits whenever I can. And then trying to brew in the intermediate hits. Now that was about as close as it gets as well, because of the amount we had to brew. Piping would have been even better. Purely so that I could get a pipe spec off if I had it. But yeah, that was about the worst one you could get in terms of damage taken, I think. It was like 43, 43, a couple another, and one more 40 or something. And there's just under 2-hour cape, which is what it should be, like, at the worst case scenario. New Virtus top does feel like it does something, which is quite nice. But that's the entire run. So a bit of an interesting, slightly different run, and off stream, so that I can talk a bit more freely, which is nice. Hope you enjoyed, hope it's useful, and next Friday, the same again, but hopefully on stream.